learners. I have a learner with me today, and we're going to discuss the planning process for the apprenticeship. So, just looking at the sessions today, the purpose of the meeting really is to understand how to plan for assessments and the scheme of work and session plans. We're going to talk about which units are going to be assessed and understand when assessment will take place. You'll need to understand where the assessment will take place and which criteria are going to be assessed against. You need to understand which methods are going to be used which become fair, safe and reliable. We need to take into account any past experience that the learner will have that can contribute towards the assessment process. We need to ensure that we've made any arrangements for learners with additional learning requirements, and whether or not people need to contribute to the assessment process. Finally, when developing a plan, we need to ensure that we've talked about areas of confidentiality and handle information, and agree the assessment plan and when the review is going to take place, so a summary of what we've discussed. So, I'm with Amy, who is an apprentice who's doing her business admin qualification. And what we're going to do, we'll have a discussion around the apprenticeship first and her journey so far, and then obviously to formalise the assessment plans. When I do this, I'm going to be stopping to Amy and then explaining why I'm doing certain things, so hopefully you'll understand why we're doing each thing. So this is Amy. Okay, and we're both amateurs at this, and it was sprung on her today, so bear with us. Now, Amy, is it okay if I record this discussion? So I've got a dictaphone there.
Yeah, that's fine. Super.
Now, obviously, it's far better now to use modern technology when developing an assessment plan, purely because you're concentrating on the learner and not on what you're writing, and the quality that comes out of a dictaphone discussion is far better than what you'll ever be able to write. Equally, you've got the learner then agreeing the stages of the plan, and if they've not understood parts of that plan, then they can challenge you there and then, and obviously they have a document that they can then go back and play. And with the portfolios being e-portfolio, it makes far more sense for it to be electronically recorded than what it does handwritten. So, Amy, you're on the business admin apprenticeship,
yep.
And your journey so far is the assessor came out and done the sign-up process with you. Mm-hmm. They obviously did the health and safety questionnaires. Yep. They produced an action plan under that, because I believe there was a few things that the employer had to do, which was update some documents and policies. Yep. And they explained to you what the apprenticeship was and the elements within that. When we developed the plan, what we're looking for is a far more rounded approach to the apprenticeship, so you understand when we're asking you to do something, not only why you're doing it, but what part of the apprenticeship it meets. So you realise that you're meeting the whole qualification at any one time. So what I've got is a series of documents here, just to help me with the planning process. So, if you're going to do any kind of formal planning with a candidate, it's really important that you have your main aim qualification, your technical certificate qualification, your ERR unit, your personal learning thinking skills, and your functional skills, English, Maths and ICT. Ideally, you should have written out your scheme of work and identified all of this within it. However, it's useful to have the standards in front of you. So when you're talking about their job role and what they do, you can help match that. Okay, so Amy, what we're going to do then is discuss the units that you're undertaking within your apprenticeship. And how do you like to learn? Are you one of these people that like to know everything that you're going to do so you can then plan, or do you want me to just do it in small bits and you do it and we move on, do it and move on?
Yeah, I think that's the better way to do it.
So you want small bits to do it and move on. Okay, super. Now, if your learner wants the big picture, then obviously you could give them a copy of the scheme of work which outlines everything. So what we'll do small sessions for planning over a period of the year so the learner understands what they're doing. Now, when we set a plan, it's important for the first time that we've set it to meet the learner's needs, and we've agreed the timescale for those. When it's an ongoing plan, it's important you review the feedback before you develop the plan, because there may be points from the previous feedback session that needs to be included. So, Amy, let's just look first of all then at some of the units that you're going to be undertaking, and then from there we'll write down some of the methods that we can use to assess it against, and then if you're happy we can then set some targets and to achieve that by. So the first unit we've got here then is manage performance in a business environment. So that unit is looking about how to plan work with other people and how you're going to be accountable for that work. And it looks at how to behave in work and kind of the things that you should be doing, and be able to plan and be responsible for work and support others to do their work process. And the last learning outcome there is to behave in a way that supports the working environment. And we go on to Unit 2. So, tell me a little bit about your job. What's your job involved at the moment? Tell me all the things that you're doing.
I'm changing a lot of documents.
Okay.
To.
That's fine. So you're changing the documents. Is that because you're in a review process at work and you're updating them? Yeah. Okay, excellent. And have you been told why you're doing that? What's the importance of changing documents?
You have to do a review anyway to make sure you're keeping up to date with all the policies and procedures. Excellent,
super. So part of your role then is you're given targets to do, and then you've obviously got to review them and kind of do you do your own plan? Do you sit down and make yourself a list? Yeah. Okay, so explain to me what you do there.
I just have the main points which I think I'll do first, and then I'll go through them and see what else I need. I'll go by priority.
Okay, and do you have a job list or a planning list anywhere?
No.
Do you not? What about on the wall?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so what's on the wall?
It's just my to-do list of the different things.
Okay, excellent. It's fine, I understand what you're saying. So, as the assessor then, if I wanted to meet some of these outcomes, one of the things that I could look at are the documents that you're producing. Yep. So can we agree then that when I come out to see you, we'll do an observation of work products?
Yep.
Because obviously the work products shows me your competencies within a business admin role. Okay, so we'll just jot down some of the things that I'm going to see. So you've talked about some policies and procedures, so whereabouts are they kept? So when I come in I can see them.
They'll either be in my documents or on our website.
Okay, so you upload and everything to the website, excellent. So you're changing documents, what else are you doing? I know what you're doing.
I know you do. I'm making sure all the assessors are keeping up to date with their work.
Okay, so you're tracking and reporting back. So that's around the classrooms, make sure that all the students are logging in. Okay,
make sure they're doing all their work.
Excellent. So for that, again, I saw that on your board. You said, must contact these people and obviously update there. So I could talk to some of the assessors to see how you're communicating with them and how you're targeting them. So what we'll do then, we'll do some work products there to observe, and then if you're happy, I can talk to the witnesses, the assessors that you're supporting, to gather that statement around that. Finally then, looking at other parts of your job role, if we look at kind of the ITC side, what are you doing with computers at the moment?
Making sure all the information's up for all the learners and stuff. we've got a Facebook page.
Okay.
And
what about updating the classrooms and things?
Yep, on e-learning.
Okay, so you've got quite a wide role really then, haven't you? So you're updating websites there, so that's good. So we'll just pop that down. Okay, websites. And you're updating the classrooms, so that's good. So therefore, when I do the observation, there must be a huge amount of things that I'm going to be able to see.
Yeah.
All right, superb. So, looking at that, I think we'd be quite happy to meet those standards for that unit. Now, the next one is about improving your performance in a business environment. So there we're looking at your supervisions and obviously receiving feedback from the management team. Now, obviously, I'm aware you've only really just started your job role, haven't you? So you've not had a supervision yet, but there's one that's been booked in for you to discuss your work and things. So obviously, we'll put that unit on hold until you've had that supervision, and then we can go back and talk about your personal development there. So working in a business environment, which is the next unit down, obviously that's looking at your surrounding areas, who you're working with, communicating with other people. So how do you work with other people and communicate with them?
I think quite well.
Yeah. So do you phone people?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So do you send out emails and respond to emails? Do you do a lot of kind of emailing? Okay. So again, for working in your business environment, and the next one down, which is communicating, we should then get lots of evidence then from emails and obviously phone calls, and I should be able to observe those. So that's good. Working with other people in a business environment. Now, obviously, I know that you work with your manager probably more than you do anybody else. So does your manager then kind of tell you what needs to be done on a daily basis, and then obviously moves you forward and gives you feedback? Okay. And I know next week you've got a meeting with some contractors and things, and so you'll be there hearing that process. And again, what we can do in the next planning session, we can obviously see how that went, to see what evidence we can draw out of that. Okay. Moving down then is the producing a document in the business environment. So talk to me about the range of documents then that you're working with. So you've made policies, you've done procedures. What else have you?
Forms.
So you've made forms. Okay, excellent. So you've made forms, you've made policies, you've made procedures.
Handbooks.
So you made handbooks. So you've done strategies. And what was that one that you did all the pictures on and pages to line it all up because they kept dropping down? Is it the course prospectus? Okay, so you did the prospectus.
The business prospectus.
And I believe with that, you've gone through a process where you've created them, they've been looked at and version numbered, haven't they, if I'm right? And then moving forward, you've started to seek feedback from other people around that. So looking at that unit then, we should be able to capture quite a lot of evidence then, again, if we do the observation of you producing a document maybe, and then you can show me the process of you creating a document and you reviewing it, the review process, and then finally obviously where that document's finally stored and uploaded. And there's obviously lots of legislation around producing documents, copyrights, data protections, things like that. So what we can do when we do that observation and things, we'll just start doing a bit of formal knowledge there as well. Okay, and then finally, using health and safety guidelines. So I'm aware you've done the Be Safe kind of health and safety bits there. So what we'll do, that one as well, we'll leave that for a minute and then we'll go back to that unit. So let's then summarise what we've just discussed. So I've gone through your job role now, so I've got a really good idea of your role and what you do. I think it's fair enough to say that we've probably agreed some of the best methods to assess you against will be work products, because your role is a work product role. Witness testimonies from the people you talk to. Obviously direct observations to ensure that you're doing what you're doing. and then you've got your workbooks as well. So we've got 4 assessment methods there that we're going to use. So what we need to do now then is set some dates when we're going to have those things done by. So shall we say then next week we'll do the observation of the work products.
Yep.
Okay, so we'll just jot that down on your plan. Super. And then the witnesses, if you want to let them know that I'm going to contact them, and again, let them know that I don't want them to do lots of written work.
Yep.
I'll ask them some questions, and I just need the witnesses to respond. Again, when you get witness testimonies, it's far better as an assessor. You have to validate what they're saying. So it's far better for you to ask the witness yourself the questions than what it is to get them to write a statement. Generally, when witnesses have written statements in the past, they've been very weak, or they say, you know, Amy's a lovely person, which I'm sure you are. But unfortunately, there isn't any standards within the apprenticeship that says, is Amy a lovely person? So as the assessor, you can then draw out some of the questions you need to ask the witness, purely because we've just done a discussion. I now know Amy's job role, and from that we can then plan moving forward the extra evidence that we're going to need. Okay, so witness testimonies were done, work products were done. If I do an observation, do you feel ready for an assessment for me to come in and observe your practice?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Excellent. If you feel happy that we're going to do it, what we need to do then is go through the standards that I want to see, and we won't record that bit because that's quite long-winded. But what we need to do, if we're going to set Amy an assessment, she needs to be clear about the standards we're going to, or I'm going to observe. It would be completely an unfair assessment if I came in and said to Amy, well, I'm going to observe you against these 3 units, and then all of a sudden I go, well, I'm going to assess you against this unit as well. And she goes, well, I'm not ready for that one. You didn't give me, you didn't say that that was the one I was going to do. So it's important that the learner understands what they're going to do. Equally, from a sufficiency point, it's important that she knows, because if she needs to meet the national standard, she needs to know which one she's meeting, because it would then be unfair for me to then say she hasn't met them if she didn't know which one she was meant to meet. So you shouldn't perform an observation until you're confident, the assessor, that the candidate has the ability, but also that the candidate is happy for the assessment, because when you turn up, you're meant to be in, you're meant to kind of disappear into the background and allow that observation to be naturally occurring. Equally, you then make notes, and then obviously you can question at the end of the observation. Okay, so the workbooks though, you're working along those, and how much longer do you think you need to complete your workbooks? Time-wise? A couple of weeks? Another 4 weeks?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so if we say a month then, because again, I know you've completed most of the units, and I'll do a feedback session with you with the stuff that we've seen. And then obviously, what we can do after the feedback, we can then do another planning session, so you then know what you need to do from the work that you've done. So, that's looking at the main aim. Now, your technical certificate that runs alongside this is the knowledge behind it. So what we need to do then is plan in the work that you're going to be doing, which is naturally occurring, and then start to cross that into the technical certificate, which is the knowledge. So, for example, what we'll do, when we look at a work product, maybe a policy or a procedure, I may ask you some oral questions to go, well, okay, Amy, why did you produce that document? And then you might go, oh, because it's a ISO requirement or an IIP requirement. I then might say to you things like, okay, well, where are they stored? And why do you store it there? So again, we'll be capturing your knowledge kind of as you go along. So it's not going to be the case I'm just going to put you on the spot and start asking you things. But for me, if I see you do something, it's important that I know you know why you're doing it, which is how we can get knowledge. So what I'll do, when we plan the observations, we'll link that to the technical certificate, and I'll mark the ones that I'm going to ask you the whys about. Yeah. So at least you can prepare yourself in advance, and I'm not putting you on the spot again as an unfair assessment. Equally, around the technical certificate, I'm aware you've been doing your online classroom, haven't you? Your E247 site for your business admin. And I'm right in thinking that you've put all the information onto the site, so therefore you've technically you've done your first draft, haven't you? So you're waiting for the feedback there as well, aren't you? Yeah. Okay, excellent. So let me just explain how that then links into the other parts of what we're doing. Because I'm asking you to go away and do a bit of research ready for the work products and the knowledge, that's going to meet areas of your personal learning and thinking skills. And within that, you'll be meeting the targets around being an independent inquirer, because you'll have to do some research to obviously meet those standards. You'll show that you're a self-manager on the grounds that you get it achieved on time, and an effective participator there. With the witness testimonies that I'm going to get about you managing and supporting your team members, you'll be meeting the personal learning and thinking skills of a team worker. So again, we can look at those standards to make sure that you're meeting them well, and equally, again, hopefully being an effective participator there. When you're reviewing your work and you're going back over it, and you've said you're going to go through the review process, that will make you more of a reflective learner. So you can go back and you're looking at what you've done and you're challenging those ideas. So again, we can start meeting those parts of your personal learning and thinking there. And obviously, for you to produce all of this, and the fact that I'm aware you made the prospectus and you've been adding things to the website, that makes you quite a creative thinker. So you're adding things into there, showing that you can clearly think for yourself there, and obviously meet some of those outcomes. So what we'll do, as long as you're happy, we'll put that in the plan that will assess those as well on those days, and against those methods. Finally, in the plan, we need to talk about your functional skills. Now, I'm aware you've done your BKSB results, and they're absolutely fine. Now, from your BKSB results, you were asked to print out your planning sheet, and then what we'll do, we'll link the documents that you need to meet those. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. So, for example, when you did your English diagnostics, you have your green area, which is obviously the things that you're really good at. Your orange area, so that's, you can see that's there. The orange area shows the areas that you need to be a little bit more careful on, and then finally the red areas, which shows things for you to do. And what's really important when we're planning for your functional skills is the fact that it's not about us making you redo what you've already done. You know, we only want you to work in the areas that you need to improve in. Now, it might be the fact that, and I do believe with you, you do have the RPL process, don't you, for English, because you've got a C grade? Yeah, so you don't need to do that again, but your maths was a D, is that right?
No, I've got a C.
Oh, you've got a C, that as well. Was it ICT you didn't?
I didn't take it.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay. So even though you've passed and you got your RPL for English and Maths, what would be useful though is for you to still look at those red areas and start to upskill yourself, because if you want to progress on to the level 3, and obviously that's part of your plan, is to do your level 3 and then go on to your level 5. You'll need to meet those standards, and by the time you get to resit it, your RPL may have expired, so you don't want to end up taking a test and then forgotten the skills. So it'll be useful for you just to look at those workbooks and to obviously keep upskilling. And again, it's useful to just constantly improve in the areas that you think you need to improve in. And again, taking that back to personal and thinking, that makes you a self-manager and an independent inquirer, so they're great skills there. Finally then, looking at the last part, when you create a document, we're going to be looking at your functional skills, English, and what you're required to do there is to write a range of documents and texts, communicate your ideas, opinions, using different formats and styles. Okay. We have to demonstrate that you can write clearly and coherently, so that's producing the document that's error-free. Present the information in a logical order, and we've spoken about that, and you may have heard me saying to other people in the past, you know, everything must have a beginning, a middle and an end, and it's got to be formatted correctly, it's got to make sense. And obviously you use the language and format and structure. So when you produce those documents, they're the three outcomes that I'm going to be assessing you against the functional skills. The reading, obviously, your role in business admin requires a huge amount of reading, because I've observed you reading the websites and obviously producing documents. So again, when you're reviewing the websites and you're reviewing the online classrooms, part of your BA role, clearly it's important that you understand the main points of what you're reading. So again, when I do the observations, I'll obviously be assessing you against that. You need to read and understand text in detail, and more so now because your job role does require you to have that detail, doesn't it, to understand that. You need to utilise the information. Well, to be fair, that's what you're doing. You're taking and extracting information and obviously producing that to meet the needs of audits and things. Identified suitable responses in text, and again, lots of that could be through the emails that are coming back and forward, so we're seeing a different range of your reading styles, from formal reading to informal reading, which is good, and more than one type of text. Well, your role requires you to read lots of different types. Finally then, looking at, so that would meet the reading element part. The last part of your English is the speaking and listening component. And again, there, obviously, I can hear you talking to people over the telephone, so I can hear your speaking skills are absolutely fine. You've taken part in meetings and we've had discussions, so therefore you've participated and you've allowed for people to contribute their ideas and things. So again, for your speaking and listening, that's kind of an ongoing assessment that we're making, but again, there, just let you know that when we do the observations, we're looking for that as well. Around the application of number and the maths, I know, sorry, I'm losing my voice. I know you're working with spreadsheets, so therefore you're analysing data and tables. So we can cover some of those ranges there and map that in. Interpreting information and problem solving, I am aware that some of the tables and the data we've had have been a bit skewed, and it's the case of then sitting there trying to work it out, and you've been doing that, that's fine. Obviously, really am losing my voice now. Obviously, the other parts around the maths is you're going to start taking the data, aren't you, from surveys and stuff, and start to produce charts and graphs. So again, when we look at the products and things that you've produced, we can think about the maths and how you're going to meet the math aspect of that with it. Okay, wonderful. The final part, which really for you using ICT, we should be able to do this one relatively straightforward, because I don't think really I've met many apprentices who's in a role like yours where you have so much exposure to so many different things. And this is the part that actually you've not yet done anyway, so we'll go through this. But obviously you need to use ICT to plan and organise your work. So for that, we've got your personal website in the business. So keeping yourself up to date on that is what I'm going to be assessing you against. In there you can set your own targets, dates and all that lot, can't you? Selecting new software for programs. Again, I've seen you use a range of software. you've used things like PDF, you've used Word, you've used Excel. So again, you're using them. How confident do you feel around using those software packages and things?
Yeah, quite confident.
So again, when we look at the work products, we can then map that into your IT skills. And when we're doing that from an assessment, you can obviously say to me, this is how I've produced it, this is the package that I've used. So we can start ticking off some of your ICT skills there. Work with files and folders. We've spoken today about, you said you save things online and onto the website. I know you've also saved things externally to external hard drives as well, haven't you? So again, saving work, and I've seen you save work. Are you confident around that?
Yeah.
You are? Brilliant. Okay. And labelling files and things like that, are you happy with all that? Because I've seen you label
stuff
files.
I used to have to do at school. So.
Brilliant. Demonstrate how to create and use and maintain secure passwords. I think you're probably better than I am.
Yeah.
He says. Not very good. Okay. Demonstrating and minimising the risks of computer viruses. So, would you like to explain about that one? What happened to your laptop?
Nothing.
So, what did you have on your laptop?
Lots of viruses.
Okay, and what did you do?
Downloaded a software. I think it's called
Malware.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and got rid of them all.
So now because you've done that, you can see actually that you have demonstrated how to.
Yeah.
So you've now got your antivirus software on your computer. You've cleaned it all.
Yeah.
And obviously, you know, I think that's benefited you because you've now met that standard and you understand that.
Yeah.
So again, what we'll do when we formally do the assessment, I can then obviously we can take a picture of that maybe to show that you've got that on there and that you've understood what the virusware is. Use search engines to find answers and things. Again, yeah, you use Google quite a lot, but there's other engines there that you use, isn't there?
Yeah.
So is there anything on that page that I've said that you don't do? Are you happy that you're confident in all of those outcomes so far? Recognise and take into account copyright legislations. Again, we spoke this morning about copywriting, didn't we? And the fact that we've now got the copyright license and things. So again, that's good. One of the areas that I know we need to work on a little bit more is the editing and formatting and layout techniques. It's probably fair enough to say I think that's an area that we can work with you on and probably publish and start to get you to be very nitpicky and around font size, colour, text, layout and the final detail things. So that one I think we'll just put as an ongoing action plan there. Processing data. So again, I don't know how much of this you've done, but you're looking at processing numerical data. So that's databasing and spreadsheets. So is that something you're confident with, or something we should plan in for the next 6 months?
I'm not that confident.
Okay. So again, that's an area we can work on. So the areas where you're doing absolutely fine on, we can now kind of put those to rest, can't we? Okay. So what we'll do then. In your assessment plan, if you go in and download the ICT workbooks for spreadsheets and database and complete those activities, then you can obviously, what you learn there, you can start to embed in your everyday practice. Okay, read, send and receive emails. Yeah, absolutely fine. And demonstrate your understanding to stay safe. That's fine. Print and view on screen. Happy that you, and I've seen you do that, and obviously check for accuracy in the meanings, and again you started to do that. So overall, what we plan to see should meet the majority of that, shouldn't it? So in this plan, then, if we look at those work products, we'll meet all of that, and maybe the next plan after that will then look at spreadsheets, and the plan after that will then look at databasing. And then you can obviously, we can build your skills into that. So that's the assessment plan. So we'll agree that kind of next week I'll come out, we'll do the observations, witness testimonies and work products. We've agreed the standards that we're going to look at over the whole framework. Is there anything you want to ask me around the assessment process and the assessment plan we've agreed? Does that all make?
Yeah, it all makes perfect sense.
And are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Lastly then, now we've done your learning style questionnaires and we've done all of that. Is there anything that I need to take into account regarding any arrangements I need to make for the assessment? So any do I need to produce any access to assessment requirements? Have you got any additional learning needs that I need to be aware of? Dyslexia or anything? No. Okay, yeah. So it's just that obviously we have a document for access to assessment, so we can make different arrangements if I needed to.
That's fine.
Is there anybody that I need to get consent from to be able to undertake these assessments? No. Because you've got all the consent you need. Super. Excellent. And finally, are there any health and safety issues that I need to be aware of before I come in and do the assessments?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, excellent. So we'll put that to the end of the planning session.
Yep.
Okay. What we'll do now. So, just to summarise then, the purpose of this session was to understand how to plan for assessment using the scheme and work and session plans. Now, I didn't use the scheme and work or session plans because I had all the documents instead. Clearly, it's easier for you to produce your scheme of work and session plans because then you're only referring to what you've got. Now, that makes far more sense than doing what I've done, because what I've done, it's paperwork after paperwork after paperwork after paperwork, where if you produce your scheme of work, you've got your plan for this session and for next session. It does make it a lot easier. Obviously, understand which units to be assessed, so we went through every unit in her framework, and we talked about each unit, and I got Amy to tell me her job role. So in the back of my mind, I could think of the assessment methods that would make sense to meet those units and outcomes. Understand where, when and where. So we agreed next week, and we agreed it'll be at a place of work. And we talked about the criteria to be assessed on each occasion. So we went through and we planned which ones she was going to meet. So she understood clearly what we were going to do and why we were going to do it, so she could prepare herself for any of the standards that she may not be comfortable with. We obviously talked about the assessment methods and the range of methods to assess her competencies. So we talked about the work products because that's naturally occurring competency evidence. We talked about gathering witness testimonies for her from the assessors and the people she's working with for competencies, and the observation. The recording that I've done today shows almost a bit of a reflective practice as well in there, because she was telling me the stuff that she'd done. Equally, it's fair enough to say now that the assessment process is fair because she's got adequate time to prepare. She knows what she's being marked against. It's safe because we talked about her safety, my safety. We talked about the health and safety element parts of it. And it's reliable because I can see the consistency within the work that she's producing, and it's reliable because obviously this was recorded. So therefore there can't be any challenge around the planning process. We talked about her prior experience. So when we was going through parts of that, we were saying, you know, have you done this before? Have you done that before? We talked about her GCSEs and the fact that she had the exemptions. But even though she had the exemptions, it's still really good practice to upskill. We talked about special arrangements and anything that I needed to take into account beforehand, and she again confirmed that there weren't any. And obviously any arrangements that I needed to make sure were there. We talked about other people that needed to be involved. So obviously I asked her to inform her witnesses that I'd make contact with them, and I obviously asked her whether or not there was anybody else that I needed to contact before I jumped in. The confidentiality process around dealing with sensitive issues obviously is the fact that the work products remain in the workplace, and obviously we talked about the copyrights and all things like that around confidentiality were in there. And assessing performance against the agreed assessment plan when this will be reviewed. So what we will now do, we'll go away and we'll undertake that assessment of the work products, the observations, testimony, and the oral questioning or discussions around the knowledge for the technical certificate. So you can see that took me about half an hour to do that planning session with the learner. By doing that, there is a lot of detail in there for half an hour's worth of work. Had we of just written that, and again, you should still produce a written plan for them, but then that should be in the scheme work in the session plan. So if you said, look, this is what I want for next time, that's absolutely fine, there's your plan. Along with this recording also shows evidence of her speaking and listening, because she's obviously understood everything that I've said, she's responded appropriately to everything that we've spoken about. So therefore, I can make assessments in the back of my mind that she'll be ready for a speaking and listening assessment. So hopefully this has helped you understand what we mean by planning a session. What you must realise is that every piece of evidence that is in a candidate's electronic or paper portfolio must have an assessment plan attached to it. If it doesn't, then it's unfair assessment and it shouldn't be in there, because the learner's being assessed against something that was unplanned and that they're probably unaware about. It's important that your learner contributes to the assessment planning process. Once upon a time, it was just sign this form, but that doesn't really prove that they were A, involved, or B, understood what it is that you were getting them to do. So, hopefully this video, alongside with the workbook, gives you the confidence and a sufficient amount of knowledge to help you answer your understanding the awards and principles and practice of assessment unit. And hopefully it gives you the confidence to plan a session with the learner yourself. What I would recommend is that you sit down with a family member and you do a plan with them like we've done now, and just record it on your laptop and get used to the electronic devices. Now, if you have any questions or you're not sure about anything, then by all means send me an email at stephen@educations.co.uk or call me and we can discuss it. Part of my role as the head of or part of my role as operational director is to ensure compliance with awarding body requirements. So planning is your most important tool you have as an assessor. If you plan the journey and the learner knows what they've got to do and they know when they've got to do it by, and you provide the resources for them, you can't go wrong. When the candidate's going to be interviewed, they can't then turn around and say that they weren't aware of the apprenticeship framework and that they haven't been supported, because a recorded plan clearly shows that they have. I'd like to thank you for watching this section, and I'll look forward to seeing you back on how to judge evidence and give feedback and collect. Okay, take care for now.